The House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee will come to order. Would the clerk please take attendance?
Chair Outman.
Here.
Representatives Alexander.
Here.
Cara.
Here.
Brock.
Present.
Kuntz.
Present.
Nair.
Here.
Preston.
Yes.
Bonak.
Here.
Frisbee.
Here.
Wertz.
Here.
Hersberg. Hope.
Here.
Colazar.
Here.
Andrews.
Here.
Grant. Miller.
Here.
Wilson. Mr. Chair, you have 14 members present. You do have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Vice Chair Alexander moves to adopt the minutes of the May 13th meeting. There being no objection, the minutes are adopted. First on the agenda today, we'll be hearing testimony on House Bill 4426. Representative Borton, please proceed whenever you are ready, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. House Bill 4426 would lower the minimum age for obtaining a hazardous materials, also known as a hazmat, endorsement in Michigan from age 21 to age 18. Currently, commercial drivers in Michigan under the age of 21 face restrictions that limit their ability to transport certain resources, such as hazardous materials, even though young adults in other fields with similar responsibilities, such as military personnel, are not subject to the same limitations. This bill would bring Michigan in line with federal requirements from the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, which allows individuals under 21 to obtain a hazmat endorsement, provided they meet all the required training and safety standards. Like many other sectors, the propane industry is facing a shortage of qualified workers. Allowing younger, well-trained drivers to earn their hazmat endorsement would help expand the talent pool and strengthen the workforce. These individuals would still be required to meet all federal safety and training requirements to ensure public safety. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. I'd now like to turn it over to Wayne Coley of the Michigan Propane Gas Association, who will further speak on the importance of this legislation.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Wayne Coley, and I'm here today representing the Michigan Propane Gas Association and also Excel Propane Company, a family-owned business that my sons and I own, serving customers throughout the West Michigan area. I am here to testify in support of House Bill 4426, which, as mentioned, seeks to lower the age requirement from 21 to 18 years old to obtain a hazmat endorsement with a CDL license in Michigan. As stated, current federal regulations do allow you to get a hazmat endorsement at age 18. However, the Michigan law requires you to be 21. This discrepancy has serious, significant implications for the trucking industry, for workforce development, and economic growth in Michigan. The trucking industry, not only our propane trucking industry, but the industry as a whole, has a serious shortage of qualified drivers, especially those certified to handle hazmat products. According to the American Trucking Association, the industry is short over 60,000 drivers nationwide. By lowering the age requirement for hazmat endorsements, we can offer young adults a pathway of well-paying, stable careers without requiring a college degree. We can help alleviate the shortage of drivers, which in turn helps ensure the delivery of essential goods, including those requiring a hazmat endorsement, such as fuel, chemicals, and medical supplies. A primary concern regarding the lowering of the age requirement is safety, and I'd like to explain some of the rigorous training and testing requirements 18-year-olds would be subject to before they can even apply for a hazmat endorsement. Starting in February of 2022, the federal CDL testing requirements known as the entry-level driver training became effective, and this basically doubled the training requirements for attaining a CDL and also for a hazmat endorsement. In order to obtain a CDL itself, an applicant must first pass an appropriate Michigan CDL knowledge test, or appropriate tests in plural, then pass a federal CDL knowledge test, then pass a federal behind-the-wheel training test, then go and next pass a Michigan pre-trip vehicle inspection test, and finally a Michigan road test. All that federal testing that I just mentioned is new requirements for the training for someone to get a CDL that wasn't there before 2022. And then for the hazmat, there is a federal hazmat test that has to be passed, followed by a Michigan hazmat test. And passing all of these testing requirements I mentioned do not come easily, nor should it. In fact, myself, when I took the hazmat test, I'll be honest, if I would have gotten one more wrong, I wouldn't have passed it. It takes studying, it takes knowledge, which appropriately so it should, but it's not something that's easily passed. Another aspect I'd like to mention is in Michigan, an 18-year-old can serve in the military, they can fight and die for our country, they can buy firearms, they can vote, they can get married, have children, buy a house, and they can obtain a Class A CDL, which is the semis, and drive a semi cross-country throughout the whole United States, but they aren't allowed to obtain a hazmat endorsement for their CDL. So far, 9 other states allow a hazmat endorsement at age 18, and they are Indiana, Illinois, Iowa, Kansas, Kentucky, Massachusetts, Minnesota, Vermont, and Wyoming. I urge the committee to consider the positive implications of this bill and to vote in favor of this legislation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Representative, and thank you, sir, for your testimony. Much appreciated. We're going to open it up for questions from the committee members, starting with Vice Chair Alexander.
Yeah, I just want to know, is there a tanker endorsement? Is there a minimum age on tanker endorsements as well?
No.
That's 18?
That's 18.
That's
correct.
18, thank you.
Representative Miller.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony today. So you had mentioned other states. Was that total? In total? Other states that, okay.
Yeah,
that-
9 other states
9 other
currently
states.
allow it.
So has there been any reports from those other states of any type of issues? Look, I support this. I'm just doing my homework here.
I don't know of any, say, follow-up afterwards to determine if there was any, any situations that arose from the change going to the 18.
So no data that you're aware of that there was a dip in, problems, issues? Okay, thank you.
I know no data supporting or
Right, okay.
pro or con data.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Yep, excellent question, Representative. Representative Brock.
Guaranteed, no excellent question here. Just kidding. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for being here. I have a CDL, and my understanding is there's a K endorsement or a K number for those that are between 18 and 21.
I have to plead lack of knowledge on the
Okay.
K. I'm sorry.
Okay, and I thought if you're under 21, you couldn't do interstate, but you could do intrastate. With this, would that allow them to transport hazardous materials over the state lines as well, or it'd just be intrastate?
Intrastate only.
Okay.
Now, if an adjoining state like Indiana, Illinois has it allowed, then my understanding is they could do those adjoining states that also allow 18-year-olds with a hazmat.
Okay, and that's in the bill, Representative Borton?
I don't think
I don't
it's,
think we addressed that.
yeah, I don't know if that has to, I'm going to be a little, I think if an adjoining state allows 18, that it's kind of like a reciprocal that you can drive in between those states. I'm using a little explanation there from when hours of service come into effect and we get a waiver on hours of service during emergencies. If an adjoining state doesn't allow it, we can't, exceed our hours of service if we drive into that state. But if an adjoining state has the exemption, then we can go between the states.
Okay, sounds good, and yes, there's a lot of training requirements that have been put on us by the federal government, which has hurt, I'll say, a lot of small, especially nonprofits that need a CDL or passenger endorsement for a bus and that, but yeah, I'm sure they're getting a lot of training whether 18 or 21, so thank you, sir.
Representative Preston.
Thank you, Chair. Just for reference to the rest of the committee, 18-year-olds can also drive a fire truck, fully loaded, emergent, going to scene. They can also drive ALS or BLS response rigs. with a VFIS or a CIVO training endorsement. So you're talking about responding to scenes, high stress, higher speeds. I'm a big fan of this. My question is, does this also require the background check, the TSA background check?
Yes, that's affirmative.
Great question, Representative. We'll go now to Representative Words.
Thank you, and thank you for coming. I too I'm proponent of freedom, and so I very much want to support this. My concern or guess question is, obviously propane's highly flammable. I have 2 sons who have been 18 and at times question their judgment. So what goes into training when you talk about that? And is there any specific physical on-road training or a almost like a license where they transport with someone for a while? Is there anything that goes along to ensure that an 18-year-old is completely competent to be transporting hazardous material or highly flammable material?
The requirements for the CDL itself, as I mentioned earlier, there's multiple state tests that have to be done to show that you have the aptitude you're knowledgeable about what it takes to drive a vehicle, either a A, B, or C CDL. There's also the federal testing requirements that are there, and then there is a federal road test requirement that you have to go on the road with a certified trainer and show that you have the capability. And it isn't just driving the truck, it's backing the truck up, it's parking the truck, showing that you can stop within required distances. And then there is the state, and that's actually the most difficult, the state pre-trip inspection along with the road test. And I know on the pre-trip inspection, you have to show a very thorough knowledge of the vehicle. And if you get one thing wrong, there's a sequence of like 4 things you got to describe in the right order, and it deals with the air brakes system. Of course, that's if the vehicle has air brakes. But if you do one thing out of order, you just flunk the test. It isn't like you get a B grade or a C grade. You flunk the test. And then very similar with the road test, you go with a state certified trainer out on a road test. And if you don't pass it, you have to come back and take it again. So there's quite a bit of both written tests and 2 different times of road tests that are required to show the proficiency of that person. So hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah, I just wondered if there was any, in driver's ed, there's so many hours that a student has to drive with a certified instructor. Is there any amount of time that when someone's starting to drive hazardous material that they have to ride with an instructor aside from passing the road test? So some training in place. I mean, written tests are great, but written tests are not real life and real response situations. And that's, I guess, we've seen several accidents in our area where young people maybe just lack of response time or on cell phones and make poor judgment calls. And so some on-road training that would ensure that these people have had that experience and understand the gravity of what they're doing.
I guess, the state testing is with a state certified inspector. It's not someone, like within our company or a propane marketer's company or other companies that would be able to use this. I know the federal one, I wish I had a little better clarity, but I know there is some, it's road testing, and it's more than just one time on the road testing, but I know there also isn't there might be a mileage requirement in there, but I have to be careful not to say something that isn't factual, but I don't believe there's anything that says you have to do, say, 10 hours of road time per se.
Thank you, Representative. Any additional questions from committee members? No. Seeing none, Representative Borton, thank you so much. I'll admit I had some concerns when this legislation first came across my desk, but you certainly laid out a very compelling case and quelled a lot of my concerns. So well done, and we look forward to debating this even further. But really appreciate your guys' time today. Thank you.
Thank you, committee.
All right. Next up, we have some votes from bills we heard last week. Representative Brock moves to report House Bill 4301 with recommendation. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Chair Outman,
Yes.
Representatives Alexander,
Yes.
Kara,
No.
Brock,
Yay.
Koontz,
Aye.
Nyer,
Yes.
Preston,
Yes.
Bonak,
Yes.
Frisbee,
Yes.
Wards,
Yes.
Hersberg, Hope,
Yes.
Colazar,
Yes.
Andrews,
Yes.
Grant, Miller,
Yes.
Wilson. Mr. Chair, you have 13 yeas, 1 nay, 0 pass. The bill is reported with recommendation.
House Bill 4301 is reported with recommendation. Representative Coons moves to report House Bill 4302 with recommendation. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Chair Outman.
Yes.
Representatives Alexander,
Yes.
Kara,
Yes.
Brock,
Yay.
Koontz,
Aye.
Nyer,
Yes.
Preston,
Yes.
Bonak,
Yes.
Frisbee,
Yes.
Wards,
Yes.
Hersberg, Hope,
Yes.
Colazar,
Yes.
Andrews,
Yes.
Grant, Miller,
Yes.
Wilson. Mr. Chair, you have 14 yeas, 0 nays, 0 pass. House Bill 4302 is reported with recommendation.
House Bill 4302 is reported with recommendation. We're going to pivot now to House Bill 4214, Representative Paquette's school bus bill. But first we have to adopt a substitute H1 for that bill. Representative Brock makes a motion to adopt substitute H1 for House Bill 4214. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Chair Outman.
Yes.
Representatives Alexander,
Yes.
Kara,
No.
Brock,
Yay.
Koontz,
Aye.
Nyer,
Yes.
Preston,
Yes.
Bonak,
Yes.
Frisbee,
Yes.
Wards,
Yes.
Hersberg, Hope,
Yes.
Colazar,
Yes.
Andrews,
Yes.
Grant, Miller,
Yes.
Wilson. Mr. Chair, you have 13 yeas, 1 nay, 0 pass. The substitute is adopted.
Representative Bonak moves to report House Bill 4214 with recommendation as substitute H1. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Chair Outman.
Yes.
Representatives Alexander,
Yes.
Kara,
No.
Brock,
Yay.
Koontz,
Aye.
Nyer,
Yes.
Preston,
Yes.
Bonak,
Yes.
Frisbee,
Yes.
Wards,
Yes.
Hersberg, Hope,
Yes.
Colazar,
Yes.
Andrews,
Yes.
Grant, Miller,
Yes.
Wilson. Mr. Chair, you have 13 yeas, 1 nay, 0 pass. The motion prevails.
House Bill 4214 is reported with recommendation as substitute H1. Finally, on the agenda today is a presentation from Sebastian Bowling of EcoPatcher. Sebastian, please make your way up to the table and begin whenever you're ready, sir.
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me here. My name's Sebastian Bowling. I am the owner and president of EcoPatcher. We are a spray injection pothole repair company. I live in Niles, Michigan. I've lived in Niles or in Michigan now for the last 18 years with my family. I'm an empty nester and a grandfather, so it's a little bit about me. So if we don't mind going on, continue. How many of you have ever hit a pothole? I know that's a kind of a loaded question around here. Let me ask you this while I have your attention. How many of you dialed 311 to report it? Yeah, me neither. Potholes affect every single person in here. It affects our children, it affects us, it affects grandparents, parents, male, female, Hispanic, doesn't matter. It affects everybody. And it costs our motorists about $3 billion a year. How many of you have ever hit a pothole and submitted a tort claim to the government to pay for the pothole or the repair? Sir, okay, 1. Anybody else? I have 2, and that's kind of how I started in this industry. If you move on, road conditions are worsening everywhere. Potholes cost us billions of dollars, and AAA estimates that just here in the state of Michigan, drivers spend an average of $600 per driver on repairs from or directly related to potholes. The traditional pothole repair, as we've all seen, is that we find out where the pothole is. We take some cold patch, we throw it in there, sometimes we heat it up. We throw it in there, we hope that cars go over it, and in about 2 or 3 weeks, we go over that same piece of road, and the repair didn't stick. Right? We've all seen this. Once we found it, we sling it in there, we hope the car goes over it, repair comes back up, and guess what happens? We repeat that on average 4 times a year for the same pothole. So the costs of going out and filling a pothole for the citizenry is that we're touching it 4 different times for the same repair instead of just touching it once. I'm going to show you a little video. I promise it won't take more than about 3 minutes. Let's see if I can get this to... Let's take a look at spray patching in comparison to traditional pothole repair. This is proof that I actually work. This is me filling a pothole. Here you will see us clean out the pothole. We remove all debris, sand, dust, anything inside the pothole, including loose rocks and aggregate that they've placed in there previously. You can see in this one particular, you can see all the debris on the side there. That's left there from the traditional method attempt. Once the debris is removed, we add a tack seal to prevent any more moisture from entering this pothole. Once our tack coat has been applied, we add cleaned aggregate with emulsion to the repair site. Once the repair site is flat and even, we add a tack seal to the top of the repair to make sure that no more moisture can enter, and then we sprinkle a little bit of light aggregate on top so that it cannot stick to the car's tires that are passing through, and this repair is completed in less than 4 minutes. The only thing left is to sweep and tamp the repair area. Coincidentally, we actually repaired this school 7 years ago, and here is an example of our product 7 years later. Faster, more cost-effective, and obviously our repairs last. I have customers come out and they're just citizens. They're just regular people on the streets, and they come out and they give us hugs, they've given us high fives, I've gotten free food, you name it, just for filling one pothole. The way that we're handling the infrastructure issue that we have currently is not, it's not technologically advanced. It's the same thing we've been doing for 84 years. And we haven't figured out a better way to do it. We work and live in your community. We have our employees do too. We have a current contract with the city of Kalamazoo, and our employees live right there. We actually have a shared facility with them to keep their costs down and give them 24-hour response every single time that they have a pothole repair. One of the things that we've been able to do with some of our other customers on the public sector is that if you dial 311 or you call in a complaint for a pothole repair, we will go out within 1 business day and have it filled. We don't move on to other projects like leaf pickup or trash removal or curbsides or sidewalks or streets or speed bumps. We are pothole repair nerds, so to speak. We only handle the pothole repairs. So we're out there 24/7. We don't have to wait for the asphalt plants to open up in April. We don't have to wait for them to close down in November or whenever they decide to. we're actually out on call and on the streets. We do not only pothole repairs, but we'll also do, when you have a utility cut, let's say a water main breaks in the main road, and you've got to fill it somehow before you can get hot asphalt from the plants that open up in April, we go out there and make sure that motorists can go on it. As a matter of fact, our repairs, once we place them down, about 8 to 12 minutes later, they are ready to drive on with no issue. That repair that you saw in the video, there was a bus that got in the opposite way. They shouldn't have entered, and they went right over a pothole repair, no issues. There's a better way to do this, and it isn't in the government's hands. Give it to the privatized businesses. Give it to the businesses that are going to reduce the costs, do a more efficient job, and it's going to last longer. I open it up for any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Sebastian. Really appreciate your time today. Is this a proprietary mix?
No, as a matter of fact, DOT can order this mix. It's the same thing that actually goes into your asphalt making capabilities as a DOT facility. So it's AE90 or RS, rapid set, when it gets hotter, and then just washed aggregate, washed limestone, usually number 11s.
Let's talk about scalability. How many EcoPatcher units do you think would be needed to service, I don't know, a specific region or
Let's take
district?
Lansing, for example,
Okay,
if you
let's
don't
take
mind. If
Lansing.
I were going to place a unit in here, I'd actually purchase 2 units and let one run on either the west side, east side, north side, south side, but that way they're dispatched separately from the 311 service, from the actual Department of Public Works. And then we would handle all the potholes in the city with just 2 vehicles.
And you had mentioned it can be used for things other than potholes, and you gave an example. What about crack sealing? Could this be used for crack sealing purposes as well?
You could,
or-
but this is a little bit more advanced than just crack sealing.
Okay.
The liquid or the tar that they go into crack sealing is kind of the same. It's very close. And as you saw, we can spray it out into the crack seals as we want, but we typically just handle potholes.
Sure. And the reason I ask is sometimes you see those crack seal tar peel up after a certain number of vehicles have driven on it, so I didn't know.
And
There
that's
was-
typically because it wasn't cleaned out prior to. That's the most important thing about fixing a pothole is it for it not to come back, correct? Well, if you're just filling the hole with all the debris that's inside of there, it's a lot like, for any of you that have children, have you ever tried to Play-Doh back into the cup? Well, there's an air pocket underneath, and that's just going to get water inside. And once water's inside, regardless if it's cold or hot, it'll start to either evaporate or freeze, and that's what's going to make the surrounding areas weaker.
We're going to open it up for other questions. Representative Cara.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your testimony. This entrepreneurial idea is quite impressive. Is this something the private sector came up with or government?
Private sector.
Okay, I have more
Private
confidence.
sector. The vast majority of the machines or the type of equipment that are out there currently that are similar to this are for the public sector. Unfortunately, and if you go to, let's say, the city of Kalamazoo or even a larger city, let's say towards Detroit, they actually have maybe 1 or 2 of these machines, but they've been sitting there for years. Why? Because they have a lot of talented people that work for the Department of Public Works. A lot of people that have been there for years and years, and to use that information or to use those types of workers that have developed 20 years plus of information and knowledge and wisdom, it's tough to get them to go and fill potholes. It's tough to get them to do trash pickup or leaf pickup. It's not something that is desirable for the employee.
If I can have a couple quick questions I want to ask with that. Have you heard of design, build, maintain?
No, I have not.
The general idea of design, build, maintain would be when you construct a road, you then have responsibility for the upkeep of the road thereafter. And to me, it seems that this type of entrepreneurial spirit, if a company had responsibility for the upkeep, the road not falling apart with difficult to enforce warranties where you have to come back in and do a full reconstruction again, but taking care with these preventative care type of ideas, if a company has a vested stake in cost effectiveness and doing these types of procedures instead of having to do a complete overhaul again later, and they'd have accountability for doing it the right way and then subcontracting with people like you, we could have far more bang for our buck with the cost effectiveness we're putting towards the roads. Does that make sense to you?
Absolutely, yes.
Thank
We
you.
actually do it for a few companies on the Indiana side, and but you said it perfectly. If you can't hold them accountable, it doesn't get done anyway. So
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Rep. Frisbee. Question still?
Yes, sir. Couple. Are there any limitations for weather when you can't do this? I think rain is probably one.
rain would be a little bit of one. We have a Stage 4 John Deere engine on each one of those that's separate from the actual engine of the vehicle, and it can blow out air at about 98 mile an hour. So I can blow most water out of potholes.
Yeah. Is there a depth at which it's not effective to do this?
No,
Okay. Do you
I
ever?
haven't met one yet, and I saw one just 3 weeks ago that looked like it was a small apartment with a swimming pool.
Yeah.
It was that large.
Okay. And do you ever go back over? Does anybody hire you to seal hot mix patches that they put in?
I'm constantly going over the hot mix patches. As you can see in that video, if you go back and look at it, you'll see a bunch of
I
debris.
mean, one that's in place.
In
that stayed
place?
in place.
No, we typically will not fill that.
Yep. I've seen these in action multiple times, and they do a really good job, and they do last.
Yes.
So
Yes,
appreciate it.
last year, as a matter of fact, we actually self-audit every single repair that we have for the first 6 months of its life. And we take about a week. I take my staff off of the roads. I get them out there to physically audit, write down information such as temperature, what's the humidity, what's the mileage per hour on that particular road. And we come back, we had about a 4% failure rate last year, which is better than a 100% failure rate that we currently have now with the traditional method.
I'm glad you said that, Sebastian. I was going to ask you what your failure rate was currently. We're going to move on to Representative Colasar.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for your presentation today. Kind of a two-part question. One, I'm curious, I know you said it wasn't proprietary. Is this something that's available throughout the state? And then the other part to that question is, do you see the industry, I mean, we know the old-fashioned way that you were talking about. Do you think that'll ever be replaced by this? Is it trending that way already? I'm just kind of curious where that progression is.
That's a really good question. I want to say yes. As a small business owner, I want to say yes, it's going that way. There's a little bit of difficulty when it comes to that, and I'd love to discuss it offline as far as what parameters we meet for what cities. While we may meet them for 3 or 4 other cities, we don't meet them for this other one because there's something about our company, whether we're non-union or whether we are union, whatever that is, that's what's stopping us, but not the capabilities.
And then I got to say, as somebody who lives on a main road, I would have probably been, a couple of years ago, I had a huge pothole right off the end of my driveway. I probably would have been the one bringing a lunch out to you had you replaced it. It was rough.
I appreciate it. I'm just as guilty too. When I actually started in this industry, and I thought this is a great idea, I had just left an executive position with XPO Logistics where I was president for 10 years, and it's because I hit a pothole.
Representative Bruck.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for being here, Sebastian, right?
Yes, sir.
Thanks for being here. Question, you service both public and private entities then?
That is correct. Yes, we do Walmart, Edward Jones, apartment complexes, housing authority. We are utilized for airport authorities as well. So yes, both sides.
Mm-hmm. And we've all seen kind of the articles where somebody patches their street and they get in trouble from the county. If we hired you to come to our street and patch it, would we still get in trouble?
I would have to seek permission from whoever on the GIS is responsible for that road. I've actually received a ticket in the state of Indiana for repairing a church's, there was a pothole in front of a church like the representative had mentioned, and we did get fined about $600 for doing that for free.
Oh, goodness. So my question has to do with cost factor. What would be the cost factor between what you're doing and obviously a repetitive filling in the pothole over and over, but a one-for-one I mean, it kind of probably has to do with the man hours for prep and that, and how many man hours it takes to fill one of your potholes versus the county.
That's a great question. Typically, the information's public, so you can go and look for it yourself. For the city of Kalamazoo, let's say, it's $9 a square foot. I can't find wood flooring for my home that cheap. So at $9 a square foot for not to touch it 4 more times, I would say the cost savings is around 32%. If I factor in that we've gone back and touched that same pothole 4 other times, I'm looking at 70% upward.
And then as far as, so that explains kind of that long-term use, but on the prep time, you have your truck ready, it can leave, it's all self-contained, everything that's needed for it.
Yeah, everything is on the truck. I don't need anything else. I don't need additional signage, or I may need a flagger or so if the road is larger. But other than that, everything is on the truck.
Okay, and then my last question, Chair, I apologize, but we've all experienced, especially 75 down Monroe County, where they patch, and then soon thereafter there's I call it a reverse speed bump, where it's going down. Obviously, there's probably different ratings for highways and things. Is what you do spec'd for highway speeds and that level of weight?
Absolutely. Even highway speeds, I look at it this way. On highway, the tire of a semi-trailer is barely touching that road. So the pounds per square footage is not as much as you would have, let's say, in your own neighborhood, where the cars are going slower and that the tonnage is staying on that road harder and longer, if that makes sense. One of the things you did not see in the video that we do on every single pothole repair is we sweep and tamp every single repair. Every single repair. And that is the difference. Making sure that no more water can get inside first, tack sealing it, and then adding the aggregate with the emulsion, and then adding another tack seal on top. Then we sweep and tamp. The tamping and sweeping are just as integral as not allowing more moisture into that pothole. So it's an entire process. And right now, we've all seen it, and I'm not saying anything wrong other than I think it's antiquated, is sticking a shovel full of hot, whatever it is, hot mix or even asphalt, and throwing it in the hole and hoping and praying that cars drive over it later is not the fix. And that's why we're spending too much money on those things.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Representative Preston. Representative Andrews.
Thank you, Chair. Fellow Berrien County resident. I live in St. Joe, so nice to see you up here. Just interested, so I saw that you're working with the city of Kalamazoo, so I presume there's no regulation or anything that keeps you from working on city streets or anything like that. Have you had any discussions with, the county? I mean, you're in Berrien County. Have you tried to talk with the county road department about using this? Have you talked with MDOT? I'm just interested in if this exists, and it seems, I mean, obviously this is the first day I've heard of it, but it seems from the presentation and the conversation we're having that this is a great technology and a good approach to fixing these potholes. I'm just interested in why maybe the county or MDOT or whoever's not doing this, especially if it's not proprietary.
That's a very good question. I only have speculations at this point. I've never been fully told. The speculation on my side is that it would potentially be removing somebody's position or their duties, and that employee would no longer have potholes to keep them busy.
I mean, that's not an objection for me personally. I don't know that for anybody here, but I'd be interested if you're up for maybe chatting after committee. I'd love to, see if there's an avenue in Berrien County to, they have a lot of potholes in Berrien County, as I'm sure you're well aware. we got pretty bad
yes,
roads,
sir,
so
yes.
I'd love to just talk more about that and see if there's
That
an
would be
avenue there.
fantastic, yes.
Sure, and I'm sure there could be a very valuable partnership there. And I thought for sure this was proprietary. Otherwise, why isn't everybody doing this? I mean, this.
Great question. It's expensive. It's expensive to buy the equipment. It's expensive to train people. And then when you're only utilizing it maybe 2 months out of the year, typically February and March for a municipality, at $200,000 a vehicle, it really doesn't make sense for it to be sitting anywhere. But unfortunately it does, because there are more important projects. We've got to take care of schools. We've got to build sidewalks. We have to build speed bumps. Not to mention how many utility cuts and other infrastructure that's that's getting older that we're fixing. And we, unfortunately, private and public sector, it's very difficult to hire qualified people nowadays. Very difficult.
Well, just on that note, I mean, what is the cost of the EcoPatcher equipment itself?
You're typically running about anywhere between $110,000 to $200,000. Not that doesn't have anything to do with the emulsion or aggregate or the daily upkeeps, but that's just for a truck.
Okay. Now, are you primarily a service provider, or do you lease and rent some of this equipment out as
That's
well?
a great question. We actually we have the ability to do both. You, as a municipality or a private business, they can either call us and ask us to come out and do it if they have a large enough facility. Let's say some of the apartment complexes that are very large and they have multiple facilities around multiple cities in multiple states. They might buy or come to us and say, hey, we would like a truck, teach our crew how to do it, and you are in charge of the maintenance and upkeep, which is fine for us as well. So we have the ability to lease it out to the municipality, let their workers work on it. We train, we do everything, and then they pay us a percentage per tonnage of rock used or emulsion, however they want to fit the contract.
Sure.
Or we'll just come out and do it for them. We prefer to go out and do it for them, just because we know that we're the resident experts and the trucks aren't going to be sitting.
Sure. Representative Miller, do you still have a question?
Yes, I do. So I love the fact that it's environmentally friendly. I did want to talk a little bit about durability and bonding. So when you apply the bond, what's the drying time like? Is it longer than traditional asphalt repairs? What's your biggest
It is
challenge?
not longer. Traditional asphalt repairs, you've driven your car over it, you can feel that the rocks spit up. We've
So
all
people
seen.
can drive on it immediately.
I'm sorry?
So people can drive over it.
Within 8 minutes, yes.
8 minutes,
So, I
okay.
mean, yes, just as it's faster than the traditional method.
And does it always bond? Is there ever a case where it doesn't, or where this product couldn't be used?
That's a good question. The ones that we've ever had issues with are typically where there is a lot of shade. And that's universal for traditional, whether you're putting down brand new road, where there's shade. And the other one is when you have water that's running underneath it and it's unseen. So when it gets flooded or something like that and the water's running underneath it, it just means that the road itself is eventually going to erode anyway, regardless if our repairs are on it or not.
Representative Wirtz?
Thank you. You mentioned earlier kind of about the inhibiting factors, and I guess that's really my question. What would be, I guess, what's preventing this from being used more at the government level, or what could we change to make this more accessible to be used?
It's a great question. I believe that it's territorial. One municipality wants to do it their way, another municipality wants to do it another. And I think that that's what's hindering us. If we were to collectively come together as a state, as even a county, and say, let's just use this, we offer the same price to everybody on the municipal side. It's because we're such an open book with FOIA requests or anything else. They can go and look, what did we charge Kalamazoo? So they're gonna look at that and say, okay, we like the same price. We would love to leverage that volume, use that volume to leverage the pricing and help everybody within a county, let's say Berrien County, for example. And that way, it doesn't matter which municipality calls upon us, it's the exact same price all the way through.
So I guess to follow up then, have you worked at all with like the County Roads Association or Michigan Municipal Group at all about that?
Not those two in particular. I have done many a demonstration for the Departments of Transportation for each one of the counties.
Do we have any additional questions for Sebastian? No, seeing none. Sebastian, we really, really appreciate you making the trip up here. I thoroughly enjoyed your presentation, and I'll just say a big focus of this committee is to obviously build our roads, but build them to last as well, and I think this might be a critical component of that. So, again, really, really appreciate your time, and I look forward to talking with you in the future.
Yep. Thank you very much for having me, each and every one of you. And my number is up there too, in our website. That's my cell phone number. Sincerely, call me anytime that you have a question.
We really appreciate it. Thank you so much, sir. All right. Representative Andrews moves to excuse absent members. Any objections? Seeing none, members are excused. There being no further business before the committee stands adjourned.